People getting in.
Got it.
Hola!
Hey.
We're gonna give people probably about 5 minutes just because people are trying to jump on now.
Well, that's good. I'm not even ready. I mean, I'm kind of ready. I'm ready. I've been crushing it all day. I painted my office and this whole weekend, that's what I did. So I just finished. Here we go. That's what happens when you're a business owner, as you know. You have to do your own painting. You look nice, Sherry.
Well, thank you. Thank you. I had to redo my office too.
So you know the deal.
Yes.
You know the deal.
Yesterday I had to go in and clean up after somebody.
Oof.
That doesn't sound good.
No.
Let me see. Where's Daniel? Is he on here? Hi, Daniel.
I am. Hey, how are you?
Oh, we got a whole bunch of people on. What's up?
¿Cómo estás?
Are you good, man? Thank you for asking. Nice to see your face. Welcome.
Thank you. Welcome here as well. Via the airwaves, the radio waves. This is crazy.
Thank
isn't
you.
It? How many years ago? We couldn't do this. What? 15 years ago? We couldn't even do this. This is crazy.
Oh my goodness. Look at all of us. I got to get Feathers to call the directions. I'll be back. We should play some music, yo. I got the
Mohini.
tunes. Yeah.
I'm not sure we're gonna do more of an informal because our meeting is gonna be, it's not just the sisters. So we're not gonna do the traditional prayer.
Oh, we're not calling? Oh, I would have left my work clothes on. You guys need to inform me of this stuff a lot sooner.
We love you this way. This is our favorite way.
Sherry told me I was supposed to be wearing a tuxedo or a three-piece suit. I forgot about that. I didn't get that memo.
Oh.
So t-shirt it is. It says Lucky on it, and that's what I'm going with.
It's good. Let me see here. I'm trying to find music for us. I don't know why it's taking me so long here. There we go.
This is already fine. We haven't even started.
Yeah, it looks like Jason and Daniel are the only ones that have like that professional equipment set up.
Right.
The one online.
I was going to use my phone, but it's an Android, and so you'll probably even be lucky to get smoke signals through that. So,
all right.
All right, we'll wait about 2 more minutes, and then we're going to get started. Okay, ECMA.
I have a question. Do only Kentuckians use Androids? Is that why we can't communicate with the outside world here? Or is it just bad cell tower? What is it?
You're on, Marza. Okay, Marza's on. Okay, so Marza, you were able to get on. Okay.
Hey, who put that image up there? I was just looking at that yesterday.
That's Marza. That's Marza's.
Oh, that's cool. I was just looking at that yesterday, or maybe day before, but like last couple of days.
She actually took that.
Really?
Yep, she was there.
Very cool. Mine is more of a centered view. It's like kind of shows both sides of the hallway and the worn steps. That's so cool. Yeah. Universe works in strange ways, doesn't it?
Yes.
It's the steps of Dendera Temple in Sohag, Egypt.
And they were talking about molding the steps. Some people were saying these aren't worn, these are molded, perhaps, or at least that's what some people speculate.
No, these are old, and they're definitely worn.
Awesome.
Welcome.
Yes. Okay, so Daniel, I'll be recording it on my side as well here when we get going.
Right on.
I'm going to give everybody about maybe 2 more minutes and we're going to just get going.
No problem.
For time's sake.
So can I ask a question before we start?
Yes, you can.
Okay, so you can see the cover of the book on the aluminum sign behind me,
Mm-hmm.
kind of
Yeah.
shadowed in green. Okay.
I don't see the top part of it, only see Day of the Fallen. And
Okay.
then,
But you can
yeah.
see the face.
mm-hmm.
Okay. So my question is this: do I look different without the beard and the magi cape?
Yes.
Okay. Totally.
Just a wee bit.
I'm being silly. Totally being silly.
Totally different, bro. Totally different.
And now Mohini changed.
So listen, can I at least call the sisterhood to order because I got a bell and a candle? What?
Right on.
Well, it's not just the sisters this time, though.
It doesn't matter. We got Brothers of Light.
Yeah, we all like candles.
This is the sisterhood meeting.
Okay, Mohini.
All right, thank you.
To order, and then what I'll do is I'm planning on doing like a very standardized prayer, and then we'll get going with the interview. How's that?
I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it.
Okay, well,
Well,
let's get us going, and then
So
after
instead of to adhere to what Desiree said, we're going to call the family of light to order.
Amen.
Right on.
And I light this candle to hold the spirits that Sherry calls for all of us in our homes where we are, and through the time space that we all sit together now. Oh.
Oh.
Okay, so then I guess it's me. Okay, so we're probably we might have some more people jump on, maybe not. I do know there are a couple people that said they couldn't make it, and so I'll be recording this and sending this out to some of the Sisters of the Light, and then a couple of other people that aren't able to make it but are not part of the Sisters of the Light. All I'm asking, well, let's say a quick prayer, and then I'll kind of lay out the framework, and then I'll start recording, and we'll get going with this interview. I'm very excited about it, by the way. So, okay, just however you do it. Heavenly Father, creator of all things good, we ask that you join us here today and put a seal of protection around all the participants as we gather with open hearts and minds to listen to our guest speaker, Daniel Holloway, as he shares the message and research as it was conveyed to him. Please grant us just a constructive and productive day of dialogue with each other so that we can come to understand ourselves and each other better, and allow this message to resonate with us on the level that you dictate according to your will. Amen.
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 Okay. All right. So, since there are people here that are not Sisters of the Light, and there's other people that are going to be watching that are not Sisters of the Light, the only thing, we'll just go over some ground rules. So, and if anyone jumps on, I ask that everybody mute themselves if you haven't already. Desiree is going to be co-hosting with me, so if I get kicked off, she's going to be able to kind of take over. All I ask is that, disclaimer is you may agree with some of what Daniel has to say, you may not. Let's just keep an open mind, open heart, and ask the hard questions. So
ask the hard questions.
Yes, he
Please.
really, he wants his research to stand on its own, and so the only way that it's going to be able to do that is if you ask the
If
hard
it's challenged.
question, and it's challenged. But
Peer
let's do
reviewed.
it in a way that's civil. So that's all
okay.
I ask. And I know everybody here, so I don't think we're going to have any issues. But in case someone does jump on and everything, I'm just asking that. So, any questions? No. Okay, I'm going to start the recording, and then we'll go from there. Okay. Did you guys get that it's recording? Okay.
Yes.
All right. Well, hello, everyone. Welcome. This is the Sisters of the Light meeting, and we are very excited to have Daniel Holloway. He's the author of the Book of Daniel and the Mysteries of the Resurrection Machine, Day of the Fallen. So, hello, Daniel. How are you?
I'm good. How are y'all doing?
Doing great, doing great. So how I want to run this, guys, is if you have a question, feel free to jump in and ask him. Don't feel like you have to just sit here till the end if it's pertinent, okay? If it can wait, let's wait till the end. He's going to stop periodically, or stop him, but again, feel free to question him and,
And pretty much,
just,
if I may say, pretty much the only dumb question is the one you don't ask.
yeah.
And you don't have to be too nice about it because I'm used to it. I'm from the hills, so it's all good.
Yeah, he is from, yeah. I'll let you introduce yourself here and tell a little bit about yourself. Just some standard business. We are actually in collaboration with Brazos Valley MUFON. So what that means is that the Sisters of the Light, we're hosting him today, and he's going to be, his topics are going to be focused around one area. And then on January 20th, Brazos Valley MUFON is going to host, and it's going to be focused on a lot of the science behind his research. So,
Okay.
but with that said, if you have a very scientific question or we pull in that direction, we pull in that direction, and that's all there is to it.
Absolutely.
So,
So
okay,
welcome,
any
welcome to the
questions so
Aurora
far?
Podcast Studio.
Yes, that's, as you can see, the Aurora Podcast Studios right
The
there.
green is already flowing.
Yes, yes. All right, well, Daniel, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay, well, my name is Daniel Holloway. I'm from Louisville, Kentucky. Not originally, I was a little farther out in the country before that, when I was born and raised, and I've had a series of experiences in my life. I will tell you that I'm a patterns person. I got a job offer at one point from the FBI because it was recognized that I was very good with mathematical patterns and codes. And I did not take that job, but at least I got the offer, so I was flattered. But as a result of that ability, let me go back just a little bit. I went to a Christian school, graduated a Christian high school. In my younger years, I'm almost 60 years old. The Facebook, social media in the old days was the church. And so I was raised in the Baptist, Methodist, and Christian churches in the town where I'm from. That was our social media. That's how we kept up with people in our towns. And so I became very well versed being a Rain Man. You remember Dustin Hoffman in the Rain Man? He saw patterns. You drop the toothpicks on the ground. He saw them. That was me. I could see patterns in everything. So when I'm reading, I would see patterns. And I've just always been a patterns person. And I picked up on things that a lot of people just don't pick up on. And that was kind of always my gift. And so that was our Facebook. That's how we kept up with people. And so I have that background, a very religious, dogmatic background, very dogmatic. But in the process of living in that stereotypical Bible Belt dogma, I was able to pick up a lot of information along the way that I think in the background, my brain was processing. So then as I got older, I had a series of experiences and was able to put some twos and twos together to get four. And so then I wrote the book of Daniel. I've recorded a tremendous amount of information that I would really like to get out to the world, that I really want people to know about before I pass from this earth, because I think it's going to affect every man, woman, and child on the planet. And there's two things. Am I going too fast here, Sherry?
No, but you are a little bit muffled.
Oh, really?
Yeah, yeah.
Is that better?
Yeah, that's better. Is that better for everybody? Okay.
Okay. So there are a couple of facets to the information I have. There is that which can be known scientifically, and there's that which I believe, but I'm not sure and I can't prove it. And so I'm not going to say that I know something when I don't, but I'm going to tell you what I suspect. And based on an experience that I had once, I'm going to say it was a near-death experience.
Can you tell us about that experience a little bit?
I used to build log homes. I was in tremendous physical condition when I was younger. I ran every day. I built hand-hewn log homes. So I'm swinging an axe and a sledgehammer all day, every day. Worked the farm, tobacco and hay, and so I was in tremendous physical condition. And but sometimes I was known to overdo it. And so one such day I came in and I was sitting on the kitchen counter. It was getting close to hunting season, and some of the buttons on my hunting shirt needed to be sewed a little bit better. So I'm sewing these buttons. And did I have a heart attack? I don't know, but I know that felt like somebody hit me in the chest with a sledgehammer, and I couldn't breathe. Your whole body just kind of locks up pretty much. There's really not much you can do when you're heart stops, at least I couldn't do anything. Now, did my heart stop? I can't prove it. There's no EMS ticket. There's no hospital run. All I know is I started falling off and blacking out, falling off the counter, blacking out. And the last thing I saw before I passed out, the last thing I saw was the rotary clock on the stove in our kitchen. And it was late at night. It was 3:27, and the 7 was turning over to an 8, which typically took about 2.5 to 3 seconds to turn from one digit to another.
Mhm.
I'm sorry. Okay.
No, I'm listening. I'm listening. No, you're good.
I heard. So everything went black. I was, at least according to my word, I was out. I was out of this world. I was no longer Daniel Holloway. I was no longer from Kentucky. I was no longer a male. I was no longer a human. I no longer had children. I was no longer anything of this world. But yet a whole nother part of me came to life, immediately came to life. It was the most wonderful experience that I have ever had. And you can read about it in the book in detail. And so even though the book is written as a fiction, there are certain parts of the book that are true. And that is one of the parts that's absolutely true, at least according to my word. I don't expect anybody to believe it, but it's true. It changed my whole life. And so I felt like I was gone forever. And if you really look up the definition of eternity, eternity does not mean forever and ever and ever. Eternity means without time, timelessness. And that is exactly what I experienced. I felt like I was gone forever. Millions of years, hundreds of millions of years, billions of years. Since the universe began, I don't know. It lasted forever. And then, to abbreviate the situation somewhat, all of a sudden I find myself taking a very deep breath back in this body. I'm still falling from the counter, and I'm still seeing the clock change from 3:27 to 3:28. And I finish collapsing. I fall on the ground, and I laid there. I laid there till the next morning, and my wife discovered me. And I didn't know who I was. I didn't know where I was. I didn't know what I was. I had to readapt over the next 3 days to begin remembering who I was. That I was, by the ways of the world, I was a male. I was white. I lived in Kentucky. My name is Daniel Holloway. I have 2 children. I'm married, and I live at this address. I had to remember all of it. They were freaking out. They were having people coming over, asking me questions. Are you okay? What happened? Can you talk to us? I couldn't talk. I couldn't speak. There's more, but yeah, some stuff's not even in the book. But what happened in that moment out of time spurred tens of thousands of images that many of what I have recorded, but not all of them, and which I hope to share with the world, because it tells us a whole lot about what ancient peoples knew, what they really knew. Sherry, am I going too far with this? Am I saying too much?
No, you're good. You're good.
Okay.
No, you're good. Keep going.
So one of the things I learned immediately is the God I had been taught about in church was not the God that I saw when I fell off that counter. It was not the same one. In church, and here's what might offend some people, but I don't mean to. In church, I learned about Jesus and the 12 apostles, just like Muslims learn about Muhammad and the 12 Imams, just like the Egyptians once learned about Ra and his 12 boats, just like the Greeks once learned about Zeus and his 12 Olympians. Every culture learns about the God that they were raised with, their download, their computer download, their program. And what I saw so contrasted with what I'd been taught that I really started to question what I'd been taught. But yet I also came back with an understanding that there was a connection between all the ancient religions, and it was never in the outward story. Like, was it Jesus? Was it Zeus? Is it Ra? Is it Gilgamesh? Is it the Anunnaki? Is it Is it, Yahweh? Is it Moses? Like, who are we supposed to follow here? Is it Quetzalcoatl and the Aztec? Is it Kukulkan? Who do we follow here? Who are we supposed to believe in? But what I found out is that the math was connecting. Now, we're not talking about numerology, even though I've been accused of being a numerologist a lot. And the math never lies. 1 + 1 will always equal 2. Now, I'm sure.
Well, hey, Daniel, before you go on, into the math aspect of it, what did you see? So you said you didn't like totally, lost all kind of titles. What did you see?
There is a super consciousness, a consciousness that goes beyond any definition we have here on this planet. It goes beyond male and female. It goes beyond Gentile and Jew. It goes beyond white and black. It goes beyond your religion or my religion. It goes beyond everything that we know here. There, you don't have children. You don't have a husband. You don't have a wife. You don't have a race. You don't have anything. You have nothing. There, you are nothing that you are here. And that is almost hard. It's almost hard to wrap your mind around. The experience coming back was the most horrible thing I've ever experienced. Being there was the most wonderful thing. And 1 second of time or less, 1 moment out of time has trumped everything that I've done in this life. It has trumped everything that I've done in this life. It is all I hope for. It is all I wish for. It is all I want. And I want that for you good folks as well. I want it for the world because I know it exists. Can I prove it? No, but there's some science. There's some science, and people need to see that science so that we're getting away from the subjective experience. We need to get away from our subjective experiences. We need to get away from what you think versus what I think. We need to get to something a little more foundational, something, an umbrella that all of us can get under, not like a dictatorship, not that kind of, umbrella, but we want to get under something spiritually, because right now the world is going in so many different directions with so many different spiritual paradigms. Many times they're at contrast, which leads to holy wars, jihads, people killing each other, the 30 Years' War, the countless jihads, the Great Crusades, and Manifest Destiny. All these things, we're doing so many things in the name of God. And when we disagree, it becomes my God versus your God. Well, what I found out is that the outward stories were all lies. They lied to us for a reason. That the people who put this together, and I've identified who did it, they lied to us, but they lied to us for a very good reason, because we could not handle the truth. Remember that with, what was that? The movie with Tom Cruise. He was in the Marine Corps and he goes, "You can't handle the truth." Well, it's kind of like that. We can't handle the truth. And they knew it. They knew we couldn't handle it, but they knew the day would come. The ancients knew the day would come when we would be able to discern the information that they left us built into the pyramids, built into the ancient structures, built into the ancient scriptures, the Odyssey, the Iliad, the Bible, the Torah, the Quran, the Hindu Vedas, and so on and so on and so on. And they left us hallmarks for this information. They left little bookmarks.
Who is they? Right? Who is they? Yeah, can you backtrack a little bit? Like, who is they that you're referencing to?
Absolutely. Absolutely. The they that did this appears to be, and notice the wording, it appears to be, and I've got a lot of evidence to support it, but I'm being careful how I say it so that I'm not absolutistic. It appears to be the magistrates.
And who were the magistrates for you? Because I know that everyone on this platform is going to have a different theory of who the magistrates were.
Okay. So the Magi were known around the ancient world. We have the Hindu god Maya, which is their language for magic or illusion. And I think it was Lakshmi was the goddess's name, but she was AKA Maya. And in Titus 3:1 of the Bible, it says, "Obey the magistrates." In the book of Daniel, the Bible's book of Daniel, Daniel was chief of the magicians. Magician is a offshoot of the word magi. In the old days, back then, science was not a word. Scientists were not a word. The word for scientists back then was magi or magicians. Now, it wasn't magic today like Harry Potter when you wave the wand. The wand
Well,
did
it
ex-
could be.
could be, because that's a good movie. Let's be honest, that's a good movie. With or without my spiritual experience, that was a good movie. But the magic wand did exist. But what was it? It wasn't casting a spell, it was writing science. And so you can go to the Jewish encyclopedia and you can look up the word scribe. And these were the people that copied scriptures and wrote, and they were the only educated ones. So the words scribes, they were known as wise men, which is a Greek word from magoi, or magi. So your educated group at the time, there was no formal education system beyond the Egyptian school of the magi, the magistrates in Israel, the magistrates in Babylonia, the magistrates in China. There was two, not Caucasian dolls, but almost, I'm going to say albino looking dolls with the sign of the Magi written on their heads, buried. They come from around 600. I could be quoting this part wrong, but I think they came from around 600 BC. And so how did they get in China?
And where were they found? Where were those dolls?
In a burial in China. They were recently discovered. Again, look up Magi on, just go online, look it up. You can read about it. Look up Chinese discovery of Magi dolls, and you can find out all about it. So there's a tremendous amount of information about there. So if I can go back for just a second, like who were the Magi?
Mhm.
The Hindu goddess Maya, spelled Maya. Well, we go to Central America and we have the Maya Indians, or Maya tribe. And I have some friends from Guatemala, and they are Maya. And I asked them, I said, is it possible? Because see, the pyramids there are, and I know a pyramid, some people say, well, a pyramid is a common structure. There's only so many ways you can build it. There's only so many things you can do with stone. And this is one of the way you do it. And that's why there's pyramids all over the world. It's a coincidence, maybe, but I don't think so. And you look at the celestial alignments of these pyramids and what the Magi knew, the real science below the scriptures, below the pyramids. Like, what was the science behind it? What were they thinking? What did they really know? And you look at it, and it's the same everywhere. So I asked my friends from Guatemala, and I said, is it possible that Maya means magic or magi? And so Manuel went back to his mother, and who remembers more stories than he does, and he asked her, and they don't really know definitively, but she told him, she goes, it's very possible that that is what it means, knowing the language that they speak in. They speak Spanish, of course, but they also speak one of the Maya languages, which I think there's like 20 of them. But she said, yes, it's very possible that it means magic. And she goes, it makes sense knowing everything that the elders have shared with her. So is it possible that the Magi were there? And the calling card of the Magi was around the world, the dragon or the serpent. You see the dragon in Chinese mythology. You see the Leviathan in the book of Revelation in the Bible. You see it in Isaiah 27:1. You see it as the serpent around the tree that deceived Adam and Eve, supposedly, if the story had been true. And you see the Quetzalcoatl, the Aztec version. You see Kukulkan in the Mayan tradition. So what is it with this feathered serpent all around the world? And how did one symbol become so ubiquitous around the world? How did that happen? Unless the people that made that mythology also were around the world. And this is at a time when people were not supposed to be able to travel the Atlantic Ocean or navigate the Pacific
Has it been found here in America at all?
Yes, it has. It's been found at Serpent Mound in Ohio. Now, it's not a feathered serpent, but ironically, the Serpent Mound is swallowing an egg, just like the Greek serpent with the Orphic egg is surrounding an egg in the Greek mythology. So here we are, right back to the serpent / dragon mythology. And so at some point you have to ask yourself, what did that serpent mean? And so I kind of figured out what it was. And I would like to show you a video if possible. Is it okay to show everybody a video of the ancient serpent?
Yeah, that's fine. While you're pulling it up, after you give the video, Daniel, one last question,
Go ahead.
I'd like to hear about why you feel like some of the stories are all false. I mean, because I'm under the pretense that it could be both, like you
Okay.
might have, obviously, from the Bible, you have parables and stuff like that, but then also some of it historically is true. And then there also could be some underlying codes or whatever.
Mhm.
So I'd like you to speak on that a little bit more as well.
Okay. And there again, by all means, keep reining me back into the question, because sometimes I get carried away. But I'm not saying that there's not certain facets. Like, let's take, for example, Herod of Herod's temple in Jerusalem during the early first century AD. Was he a real character? Well, we have sources outside of the Bible that say he was a real guy. King Nebuchadnezzar, mentioned in the book of Daniel. We have lots of sources besides the Bible that says he was a real guy, and that, so we can confirm certain of these people. But if I was to tell you that Daniel Boone came in through the Wilderness Trail into Kentucky, and he brought with him 12 other settlers, would you know I was talking about lunar cycles in code? Or would you really say, well, because there was a Daniel Boone and we believe there's a Daniel Boone, that therefore the rest of the story is true too? But see, the rest of the story is not true. He didn't come in with 12 settlers. I am now encoding information with celestial science. And that is why you see the number 12, the number 70, the number 72, and other mathematical data laced within every ancient scripture. And see, that's what's important to know here, is every ancient mythology, and I'm including the Bible in that, and the Quran, and the Hindu Vedas. The math is what connects them, because the math is identical. It is the same in the Bible as it is in the Hindu Vedas. It's the only thing that is the same, because in India, they don't worship Jesus. They didn't then anyway. In Greece, they didn't worship Ra. You see what I'm saying? In Gilgamesh, the 12 epics of Gilgamesh. Why was it 12 epics? Why wasn't it 13? Why wasn't it 11? Because they're talking about lunar cycles. So the only thing that is consistent through every one of these mythologies, the only thing that doesn't lead to warfare, because my God's better than your God, or vice versa, is the math. And the math.
So that's where you're
never
saying we
lies.
should start. We should start with the math.
Yes. And what does the math tell us? Okay, so they're talking about lunar cycles. Big deal. Daniel, big deal. What does that mean to me? And so you have to get into what they knew, and you get into the science. So there's a couple of things I was really hoping to get into. And of course, there again, Sherry, you got to direct us, but there's a video from NASA. It's about a 4-minute video. I think I can cut it down to 3. If you don't want to watch that, we don't have to, but it kind
No,
of,
we can watch it. No, if you've got it, are you guys okay with that? Watching it?
it's a short video.
Okay.
And as soon as it just even starts to get boring, I'll shut it off here. Okay, Zoom.
I'm interested.
Okay.
Okay. Share screen. Okay. Where did I have this thing? Wait, one. Okay. So this is not going to tell you any numbers just yet, but it's going to tell you the science behind everything that I'm saying. This is what NASA has discovered. They put up a mission.
Can you maximize it, Daniel?
Yes, I can.
It's a little small on my side.
Can you hear that?
No.
Okay, let's go up here. Sound. Okay, you ready? Here we go.
Portals around Earth.
Yes, we can hear it.
By science at NASA. A favorite theme of science fiction is the portal, an extraordinary opening in space or time that connects travelers to distant realms.
This is a NASA video.
A good portal is a shortcut, a guide, a door into the unknown, if only they actually existed. It turns out that they do, sort of. And a NASA-funded researcher at the University of Iowa has figured out how to find them. We call them X-points.
Pay close attention to the aurora that they speak about in here.
Explains plasma physicist Jack Scudder of the University of Iowa. They're places where the magnetic field of Earth connects to the magnetic field of the Sun, creating an uninterrupted path leading from our own planet to the Sun's atmosphere 93 million miles away. Observations by NASA's Themis spacecraft and Europe's cluster probes suggest that these magnetic portals open and close dozens of times each day. They're typically located a few tens of thousands of kilometers from Earth, where the geomagnetic field meets the onrushing solar wind. Most portals are small and short-lived. Others are yawning, vast, and sustained. Energetic particles can flow through the openings, heating Earth's upper atmosphere, sparking geomagnetic storms, and igniting bright polar auroras. NASA is planning a mission called MMS, short for Magnetospheric Multiscale Mission, due to launch in 2014 to study the phenomenon. Bristling with energetic particle detectors and magnetic sensors, the 4 spacecraft of MMS will spread out in Earth's magnetosphere and surround the portals to observe how they work. Just one problem: finding them. Magnetic portals are
So
invisible,
NASA's going out of their way to
unstable,
figure this
and
out
elusive.
because they're
They
important.
open and close.
They don't
without
just send
warning,
up multi-million
and there
dollar
are no
satellites
signposts to guide
just
us
for
in,
their
wrote
health.
Scudder. Actually, there are signposts, and Scudder has found them.
And I want to show you why this is going to
Portals
affect
form
all of
via
us.
the process of
Because it will.
magnetic
It will affect
reconnection.
every man, woman, and child on this
Mingling
planet.
lines of magnetic force from the Sun and Earth crisscross and join to create the openings. X points are where the crisscross takes place. The sudden joining of magnetic fields can propel jets of charged particles from the X point, creating an electron diffusion region. To learn how to pinpoint these events, Scudder looked at data from a space probe that orbited Earth more than 10 years ago. In the late 1990s, NASA's polar spacecraft spent years in Earth's magnetosphere, explains Scudder,
Can I hit stop
and it
share?
encountered many X points during its mission. Because Polar carried sensors similar to those of MMS, Scudder decided to see how an X point looked to Polar.
Okay, I'm going to stop it there. Whoops. Hold on. Google.
Daniel, my name's Amanda. Hi. I just wanted to know if
He
you
can't
could...
hear you. Amanda, he can't hear you. He doesn't have his thing on yet. He took his
Okay.
head.
Okay.
Yeah.
Will you see if he can, if we can get that
Okay,
video?
say that again,
Like,
Sherry.
Amanda jumped on. Okay, Amanda, he's got his headsets on.
Okay,
I
go ahead.
just wanted
NASA's
to
website.
know if we could get access to that video you just shared.
Yes, ma'am. Sherry, can I get that to you and then you share it with your
Yep.
people? Is that
Yep.
okay?
Thank
Yes,
you
absolutely.
so much.
Now, I want to tell you why it's important and where it's going to go with the number 12 and 72 and all the other numbers that are encoded in the ancient scriptures. And
Well,
I wanna
hang
go
on,
back.
back up real quick. Sorry, Daniel.
That's okay.
I'm asking questions for everybody.
Oh, please do.
What do the portals go to? Like, what is the portal from your definition? Is it like
Okay.
interdimensional? Is it just to like what do
Wonderful
the
question.
portals go to?
Perfect question. Okay, so NASA kind of hyped that video a little bit. The proper name for the portal that they discovered are portals that interact between the sun's magnetic sphere and the Earth's magnetic sphere. The proper name is a reconnection point. Have you ever had two magnets? Most of us have at some point when we were kids, or I still play with them because I'm an adult and I'm never grew up. But you take the two magnets and they either repel each other or they attract each other. Well, they have the invisible magnetic sphere around them or magnetic circuitry around them. And you can feel them. You can't see them, but you can feel them working. And it's interesting because where those two magnetic bulbs meet, if there's enough energy, they can do a thing called reconnection. And that's all the portal is. It's where the lines snap. So you want to know where it leads to. The sun is 93 million miles away. It puts out a tremendous amount of electromagnetic. I'm sorry, let me start over. It puts out a tremendous amount of electromagnetic energy, along with a lot of X-ray radiation, light, ultraviolet, all these different lights. But what I want to focus on is the electromagnetic energy, and in that is carried with that X-ray radiation. The sun's magnetic lines will carry all that energy. Our magnetic sphere, just like the two magnets that are trying to repel each other, our magnetic sphere around Earth tries to repel that, and it doesn't let most of it in. But sometimes, as Earth's axis is beginning to straighten up because we're tilted away from the sun, our geographic axis is tilted away. As it comes back, the magnetic spheres between the sun and the Earth are aligning better. Those lines will snap. It'll make a reconnection point or a portal. And all that stored energy in the sun's lines will go into our atmosphere, and it'll make a bright polar aurora, brighter than normal.
But how
And-
is the radiation? I'm sorry to cut you off, Daniel. The radiation, wouldn't that be a bad thing?
Radiation is a two-edged sword. We know
Okay.
from Hiroshima and Nagasaki, we know from Chernobyl that it can be a very bad thing. It can cause grotesque mutations. But we are also learning from Chernobyl, Johnny come lately, that darn it, it can change your DNA for the better. It can do two things, depending at the rate of exposure. So we're learning something new about radiation. Yes, there are a lot of negativities about it, but we're also learning that the birds that have been flying in and out of the exclusion zone there can now take 3 times the radiation. Their DNA has adapted. They can now absorb 3 times the radiation that they could have 40 years ago, let's say. And this has gone through generation and generation, and the adaptations in the DNA have changed. And so now they can take radiation that before would have killed them. Their colors are changing. They're starting to display more reds and blues and greens and beautiful colors. The dogs and the wolves there. And I've got some screens I can show you, or you can just look it up yourself. It's easy to
No,
find.
if you want to show us, that's fine. Whatever you've got.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's see here.
And if any of you guys have any questions, feel free to jump on and ask the questions.
Okay.
I have a question.
Okay.
I think this is really a unique idea because, when we talk about radiation being a problem for humans, we're talking about man-made radiation. We're not talking about the creation's radiation from the sun, and that the plasma of the sun actually is fundamental towards propagation of life. So I think that's an interesting difference when we're talking about radiation. Just wanted to wonder what you think about that, if that's accurate, because it's just an assumption on my part.
No, there is something there. Right now, on the surface level of the Earth, we function from negative ionic structure. Imagine a battery in a car. It has both positive and negative. Well, we don't get a lot of radiation from the sun because our magnetic sphere presently deflects most of it. So we get this, it's a negative ionic structure. I have a friend that used to, as probably is not applicable here, but he uses the word low rent when he's talking about somebody he doesn't like. He's like, well, they're low rent. He says that. But we get low rent radiation, very, very low energy. And our consciousness, whether you believe where we were created or whether we have evolved, our consciousness at present operates from a type of electromagnetic circuitry that is negative ionic structure, and it's very low energy. Very low energy. Now, what do you think would happen if you introduced all that tremendous amount of electricity, charged ions, you strip away the electron, and now you've got radiation, positive ions, and you introduce that into the human consciousness, not only the human DNA, which we can know from Chernobyl, but you do it over an elongated period of time. What would happen? Now, this is the part I don't know, but I suspect, based on what I've learned about the ancient scriptures, that the ancients knew exactly what it would do because they've seen it before. And we can get into that if I'm hoping we have time on this meeting to get into how they knew. But they did know, and they wrote about it, and they wrote about it in code. They wrote about it by the season. And there's 12 seasons. How many times does the moon go around the earth per year, per solar year? 12 times. If it's a synodic year, it goes around 12 times. And so they noticed different colors of the aurora per each month. And they wrote about it. And you want to know how they wrote about the coming of a super aurora? And that's what's coming, folks. That is what's coming, is it's a super aurora. And, you saw in the NASA video that the radiation incoming does make the aurora bloom. Well, what if we had so much that we had a global aurora? Well, the Bible tells us about it. It talks about it in the book of Revelation in code. And it talks about it as though it's called the glory of the Lord. And the glory of
Daniel, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I'm seeing the Chernobyl wolves.
Okay. You want to switch? Let's get out of there. Stop share. Sorry, I'm so bad about that.
But that's okay. So the glory of the Lord, that's what you were talking about.
The glory of the Lord is as an emerald. What color is an emerald? Green. What color is the main color of the aurora? Green. and it's also as a sardian stone. What color is a sardian stone? It's red. What's the second main color of the aurora? Red. So it's telling you about the glory of the Lord. And it goes on in chapter 21 to talk about, and it says, in that day, and that's the day that's coming, in that day, there shall be no need for the light of the sun or the moon, for the glory of the Lord shall illuminate the temple therein. Now, wait a minute. Are we talking about an aurora so bright that it goes around the globe and that you can't hardly see the sun or the moon? Now, come on. Are you serious? Well, it's happened twice. It happened once 42,000 years ago, and they have been able to find the records of a huge geomagnetic positive ionic structure surge within the rock layers. It's when all of the existing humans at that time went into caves. It's when all your cave art began, because there was so much radiation outside the cave, you could not hardly survive. And they were forced to go inside. You can read about, please do searches on the New Zealand tree 42,000 years ago. Look up these keywords: 42,000, New Zealand tree, the beginning of cave art 42,000 years ago, geomagnetic storms 42,000 years ago. Look it up. There's a tremendous amount of online data. So now I wanted to, let's go back here. What were we talking about? You made me think, and I've already lost my thought here.
You were talking about Chernobyl and how it was changing the DNA, and then you went into consciousness, and you were talking about how something's going to happen that's going to affect every man, woman, and child.
That radiation, that electromagnetic energy will change our consciousness. That's what I believe. Can I prove it? No, I cannot prove it. But if we know it can change our DNA, and we know that NASA sent up these satellites, here's what else NASA knows. Let me go back to the science for just a second. Since the 1970s, NASA has recorded I don't want to say that it's a massive increase, but they've noticed that since the 1970s, hey, something's going on. Background radiation is increasing exponentially. It is. It's exponential. It's going up. It's gotten so bad now. And my fiance's son flies for UPS. I have a friend that was an admiral in the Navy. He was over an aircraft carrier. He now flies for UPS. He's retired from the Navy, and has told me the same thing, that the radiation is picking up so much that the aurora is literally creeping farther from the North Pole, farther south. He said, if you go back 20 years and you compare how far the aurora was coming south, how far south it was then on average compared to now, he said there's no comparison. It's way farther south, way farther into Canada than it used to be. We're getting more solar storms. Now they say, well, that's on an 11-year cycle. Every 11 years we get solar activity, and there's more solar activity. I'm 60 years old, so I've been through 5 of these cycles in my life. Never have I seen so much aurora in the state of Kentucky from quote unquote solar storms. But now we're not talking about solar storms. We're talking about this reconnection point starting to function. We're not talking about an offbeat storm that hits the earth. We're talking about a constant state of reconnection that's letting this energy in on a regular basis. Does that make sense? We're talking about two different things. We have to separate an 11-year cycle of solar storms that NASA tells us about from this constant influx. But I've already seen the aurora in Kentucky 3 times this, not this year, this winter. I've seen it since October. I've seen aurora 3 times in the state of Kentucky. Barely, but you could see it. I'm almost 60 years old, and it's the first time I've ever seen it. Now, has it been here before? Yes, and the records show that it has been here before. But this is pretty far south. And to see it 3 times in 1 year, what happened during the other 5 cycles I missed? Where was the aurora then? So it is increasing. UPS pilots will tell you, the ones that fly to Korea, Alaska, and other northern latitudes will tell you that they're seeing more. You can look on the UPS blog boards between the pilots, and they'll talk about it. So
Do you
it's
think
happening.
this has to do with how they're saying that we're due for a pole flip?
That is part of the
That part,
problem.
okay.
That is
Okay.
part of the problem. Absolutely. That is a number in the equation. I guess that's the right way to say it. That is definitely part of the equation, but it's certainly not the main thing. There's a thing called a Milankovitch cycle. There was a scientist from Russia. His name was Milankovitch, and he understood by looking at strata layers of the rocks and stuff that the Earth tilts back and forth between 24 0.5 degrees and 22.1 degrees over a 41,000 year cycle. Well, we're getting back to about 23.44 degrees. But there's a little bit of argument to whether that's correct. Some people say it's less than that. Some people say the rate of movement is increasing. I can't confirm or deny that. I don't know. But what we can confirm is that since the 1970s, more radiation is coming in. NASA has called it, and they're getting ready to issue radiation. The FAA is getting ready to issue radiation warnings for pilots that fly over northern latitudes. In other words, you can only absorb so much radiation safely before you're going to be limited from flying over that latitude. UPS pilots will have to take different routes. They have to fly to Saudi Arabia or somewhere else because we can't let you keep flying over the northern latitude. You're getting too much radiation. Or they're going to have to start padding the planes to where they don't get that radiation, and they don't have a solution for that yet. So the radiation is increasing. And
But it's not necessarily a bad thing if you're saying that, you know, the wolf's DNA is changing, the bird's DNA is changing, and it's not all bad.
Correct. Now, let's go to the Bible for a second. Let's have a little fun here. Let's go to 1 Corinthians chapter 15. And pardon me for quoting the Bible. I know it because I memorized it. But we can go to any scripture. But 1 Corinthians 15 says, it says, as we have borne the image of the corruptible, that meaning this body, we shall also have the image of the incorruptible. And I'm probably not wording it right, but basically it says, but this corruptible must put on incorruption before this mortal can put on immortality. And of course, the promise in the Bible is the coming of the glory of the Lord. And what is the glory of the Lord? The super aurora. Let's stop for a second. I know what I forgot a second ago. I want to show you something about the Carrington event.
Can you share with everyone what that actually is for those that don't know?
Yes, I'm going to actually read it. Can you see that on your screen?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yes.
so I'll just read this with you. It's fun. The Carrington event was the most intense geomagnetic storm. Now, this isn't a reconnection point, but the end effect is the same as if you had a constant influx of radiation from reconnection point that NASA discovered. The Carrington event was the most intense geomagnetic storm in recorded history, peaking from 1st and 2nd of September 1859 during solar cycle 10. It created strong aurora displays that were reported globally. That means around the world, and caused sparking and even fires in multiple telegraph stations. It was so bad, people, that you could not touch a metal pot or a pan without getting static electricity. You know how you rub your feet on the carpet and you touch somebody else's finger and you get shocked? Remember doing that when you were a kid? Well,
Yep.
you couldn't even touch a pot or a pan or anything without getting shocked. They were unhooking power lines from their telegraph machines and still sending signals with no power source. There were sparks arcing up and down the power lines. It would shut down every satellite we have. It would shut down every transformer. Our electrical grid would be down if we had this much radiation all at once right here, right now. We are not ready for it, but it happened in 1859. The geomagnetic storm was associated with very bright solar flare on September 1st of 1859. It was observed and recorded independently by British astronomers. I'm going to skip read here because I want to get to some of the goody stuff. A geomagnetic storm of this magnitude occurring today would cause widespread electrical disruptions, blackouts, and damage due to the power outages of the electrical grid. Skip reading here. I'm going to go down to this. This guy was in Baltimore. This is the Baltimore newspaper. It says those who happened to be out late on Thursday night had an opportunity of witnessing another magnificent display of aurora lights. The phenomenon was very similar to the display on Sunday night, though at times the light was, if possible, more brilliant and prismatic hues, more varied and gorgeous. The light appeared to cover the whole firmament, apparently like a luminous cloud. So let's stop and go back to Genesis 1, where it says, and a mist came up from the ground and watered the whole of the earth. Well, trust you me, it's not talking about water. It's talking about the luminous cloud that covered the ground. And it says, and I created every green thing. It's talking about trees. It's talking about aurora, because it was all a code. None of it was real. There was no Adam and Eve. I'll show you who Adam and Eve are if you need to see. I will show you Adam and Eve. I will show you every biblical character, every character. I'll show you Lord Vishnu, anything from ancient history I can show you. Zeus, Hercules, anything you want to see, I can show you, but they weren't real people. Every green thing was the aurora. The luminous cloud was this mist. It's an ionic mist that came up in 1859 around the whole globe. People were seeing it, and it was like literally a luminous cloud on the ground. It's beautiful. So that's what the Bible's talking about. It's telling you about the coming of this aurora, and it did it in code. Okay, let's keep going. It says it had an indescribable softness and delicacy that seemed to envelop everything upon which it rested. Between 12 and 1 o'clock, when the display was at full brilliancy, the quiet streets of the city resting under this strange light presented a beautiful as well as a singular appearance. In 1909, an Australian gold miner wrote of his observations. He says, I was gold digging in Rokewood, Australia, about 4 miles from Rokewood Township. Myself and 2 mates looking out of the tent saw a great reflection of the southern heavens at about 7 p.m. In about half an hour, a scene of almost unspeakable beauty presented itself. Lights of every imaginable color were issuing from the southern heavens, one color fading away only to give place to another, if possible, more beautiful than the last. The streams mounting to the zenith, but always coming a rich purple, with reaching there and always curling around, leaving a clear strip of sky which may be described as 4 fingers held at arm's length. The northern side of the zenith was also illuminated with beautiful colors. And he goes on, and he goes on, and he goes on. Talks about the telegraphs and unhooking the power sources. And it even gives the conversation between 2 people, one in Maine, one in New York or Boston, and they didn't even have their power sources hooked up, and they're still communicating. So that's how much electricity was in the air. You cannot go for 500 or 1,000 years by that and not have our DNA changed. You cannot be affected by that. Your consciousness cannot go unaffected. I mean, they even have like ionic stones that you can wear bracelets and necklaces, and that affects you. And it's just a little weak stone. So what do you think is going to happen if this happens? So it's going to be significant. And when I had my near-death experience, the oneness that the Bible talks about is what I feel I experienced, and what every ancient religion pretty much talks about. May I make an example of that state of consciousness and what I feel it's like? And I always try to probably wear it out, but here's what I see. If you look at a forest and we say, oh, that's a beautiful forest. Well, it is and it isn't. It's beautiful to us because that's what we know. But really, if you really look at what the trees are doing, they're not in unison. You've got the hickory, the walnut, the oak, the cedar, and they're really all fight for dominance of the light. That's why in a forest where there's a lot of trees, they all grow to try to outgrow each other, to try to get the light. They're not there to help each other. They're there to establish their tree. And that's what they're doing. And so, but they're all reaching for the sunlight. And I'm speaking metaphorically here. They reach for the sunlight, but they all ultimately die. They're rooted to the ground. They're rooted to this reality. They're rooted to this life. They reach for the light, just like we all do in our religions. We reach for the truth. But do we ever really find it? And we still die. But you know what would really transform those trees and make them a new creation? Burn them. Burn the whole forest. Burn it. Light a match to it. Now, I'm not saying do that. I'm speaking metaphorically. So please understand where I'm going with this. I'm not saying physically do that. But when you see a forest fire, it transforms. There's no longer an oak tree, a cedar, a maple, hickory. All this ceases to exist. But the molecular structure transforms into another state of matter, doesn't it? It's now air. It's free of the ground. There is no more individual trees. And it's a new state of existence. Matter can only change. It can never cease to exist. So how do you alter that? Now, what if you took that metaphoric example and you transferred that to consciousness? To where, remember, I didn't have a family. I wasn't white. I wasn't a man. I didn't live in Kentucky. All those identities were gone. Does that make sense where I'm going with that? That's the promise. So at first that might make us sad. Like, whoa, you mean I'm going to lose all this? Trust you me, what I gained in that moment was the greatest thing of my life. And I have wanted it ever since. Do I love my children? Of course I do. Do I love my fiance? Absolutely. But the promise of what's coming and what the ancients promised us would happen through this transformation of both mind and body is greater than anything we have experienced in this life. You can count on it. Are you there?
Yep. No, I'm there. I'm just listening. I'm just
Yeah, hey,
listening.
Okay.
Daniel, this is Carol. You know, you brought this point up back when you were talking about your NDE or what you think was an NDE. And my take on what you said, it was really powerful for me. It's like that one moment of being trumped or eclipsed, I guess, if you will, every moment of doing that you ever did in your life. And that was a real powerful realization for me.
Yes, ma'am. And I'm glad that meant something to you. I'm very glad because it, well, meant everything to me. And it is changed my path in life in so many ways, to where now I have dropped pretty much everything. I had many financial opportunities in life that I've dropped because I have one goal now, and it is to tell people what I know. But the science, and we're here in an hour to 2 hour meeting. There is no way I'm going to be able to show you everything. But there is so much information I have to share, and I'm willing to sit down with people. I invite people to come in. They'll get a hotel up the way, and they'll just spend the day with me. And I'll do nothing but sit here on the computer. I've got 2 monitors, and I can show them the images and what the ancients knew and how they knew it. Now, let's talk a little bit more about what they knew. I want to tell you about the ancient serpent. And the serpent, the ancient serpent, was the call sign for the Magi. It was the call sign for the Magi. But I want to show you a little more, because for people to drop their religion, I almost sound like an atheist, but I'm not. I'm not an atheist. I don't believe the literal stories. If you say you do believe that Zeus and the 12 Olympians were God, right? I'd be like, call me an atheist, because I don't believe it. But I don't believe any of the ancient stories. But I do believe the math, and I want to show you something. I made this video myself. Zane is going to help me find this. Now, there's no sound to it. In Herod's temple, this is the second Jewish temple, we had the men and women's court.
Can you make that bigger or
Yes,
no?
ma'am. Yes, ma'am. How's that?
Yes, that's better.
Okay. So can you see my mouse?
What are we
Clicking
looking
thing?
at?
Okay.
Yes, I can see your mouse.
Okay. This is the women's court. And you'll notice in the women's court, there is a circle, and it's divided into 12 pieces. This is and they put the information. This is the thing. The ancients, with the pyramids, with the scriptures, they put the bookmarks there for us. They put them there, but they knew we couldn't understand them, but they still put them right in front of us, knowing the day would come, we'd figure it out. And we have. This is what we would now call the zodiac grid, but it's really half of the celestial sphere. It looks like, in the celestial sphere, by the way, is an imaginary orb that, if you're a viewer standing on the earth, it surrounds the earth, and you can use it as a backdrop by which to catalog the movements of the sun, moon, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn, which the ancients did because they were trying to accomplish something. We're going to get into that. But notice it's divided into 12 pieces. Up here, we have another circle. This is called the men's court. It's the upper half of the celestial sphere. And there's exactly 15 steps that divide the women's court from the men's court. And consequently, if you divide the celestial sphere into 12-degree arcs from top to bottom, you have 15 steps. So they're telling you this is a celestial sphere. Now check this video out. Oh, come on, Eric. You can do it. There it goes. This is what the ancients knew, and this is how they tracked their information, and this is how they kept up with it. It was not astrology, it was astronomy.
How did you get this information? Like, for me, and maybe I'm just not there, but I never would connect the dots like this.
I'm almost afraid to tell you how I got it, but I dreamed about it after that experience. I dreamed about it every night. I still dream about it. I still get information. I get up at 2 and 3 in the morning. I write it down. And this is what I see when I dream. Make fun of me if you want, say I'm out in left field, but ever since that experience, this is what I see.
No, I don't think anybody's going to make fun of you or anything, especially not in this group. We just want to, like, for me, I'm trying to, like, how did you get this information, you know?
Well, now it's right in front of my face. I can't not see it. But they knew the day was coming. They knew that we would figure it out. And when we did, when we were capable, when enough radiation came in to change the mind just a little bit, we would begin to start to see the numbers, the math, the patterns. Now, the Earth's axis, I'm going to pause, draws a circle across the sky over a cycle of 25,920 years. And it draws a circle around that set of stars. Now, there's nothing wrong with that set of stars. It's just a set of stars, random in the sky, in the heavens. But the ancients noticed that, hey, this alignment is a bad thing because when we're tilted this much, we're not getting any radiation, and that radiation is what's going to change us. So how are we going to symbolize this bad alignment? So they called that set of stars Draco. And Draco, through all the ancient mythologies, Bible included, was a bad thing. It was either a serpent or a dragon. And it was symbolized as such. So can you see that there was no serpent? That it was just a set of stars? And how are we going to make that a bad thing when we write about it in our stories? Well, we're not going to make it a pig, or we're not going to make it a bird. We're not going to make it a dog because dogs are cool. So we're going to make it a serpent because most people don't like serpents. Some people do. Most people don't. And of course, there was how many apostles? 12. How many tribes of Israel? 12. The woman in the book of Judges, chapter 5, was cut into 12 pieces, and so on and so on. So here we are. The celestial equator points to the 12 signs that the ancients divided accordingly to help them track their information. And I'm going to show you how they tracked it. This is not a real long video. We're about halfway through it. But here you can see not only the celestial equator and how it points to the 12 signs, but the circle that our axis, geographical axis, is drawing around the constellation of Draco. That again was symbolized as a bad thing. This is the Leviathan of chapter 27:1 in Isaiah. The dragon that had 7 heads and 10 horns, and we'll get into that. Why did he have 7 heads and 10 horns in the book of Revelations?
So is our axis off? Is that what you're saying?
It is off.
Was it ever like in alignment or
Yes.
something?
Yes, it was farther, closer than it is now. Was it ever actually perpendicular to the sun? I can't say. I don't know.
But if
But
it, okay, so if we were to correct for that, will we be getting more radiation in from the sun? Is that what you're
Yes.
saying?
Yes. Hence
It-
the removal of the dragon, the chaining, the symbolic chaining of the dragon in the book of Revelation, and thus the return of the glory of the Lord, or the super aurora, aka the super aurora. That's all it is. There is no.
So, okay, so with the super aurora, if that's going to let in a bunch of this radiation, I mean, what's going to happen to our DNA? Is it going to happen simultaneously? Is this like the great ascension, or some people say the rapture? I mean, what are we talking about here?
Oh yes, and you kind of got me on that question last time we spoke too about the twinkling of an eye at the last trump, and I've got that for you here too. Not right now, but remind me to come back to that, and I will
Okay.
show you the twinkling of an eye at the last trump. We shall all be changed. So the Battle of Armageddon, where now, according to the literal interpretation of the Bible, is this battle in Israel, and it's going to be surrounded by all these countries, and everybody says China's coming in and all this different thing. I'm going to keep playing this. Notice the dragon, though, while I'm talking. Notice how the dragon symbolism was derived. But the Battle of Armageddon is not a literal battle. It never was. If you look at the math involved, it was never a literal battle. That was the cover story. That's all we could believe. That's all we were able to believe. But the Battle of Armageddon is the battle of the consciousness, because the transformation process, getting back to the twinkling of an eye, it doesn't happen in the twinkling of an eye. It happens slowly. Now, don't let that be a bummer. The end product here is still a long ways off, but it's already started. So you can see all the ancient serpent symbolism. And of course, notice here in Babylonia, I don't know if you can see the mouse, you see an axis going between these twin serpents. Here in India, you see their version, but you still see the axis. That's the Earth's axis. Here in Egypt, you have twin serpents and somebody controlling both. Here's the Orphic egg. That's the Earth surrounded by the serpent, just like in Serpent Mound in Ohio. The serpent is eating an egg and it's pointed right to the summer solstice, which sunset, which represents the Earth's greatest tilt during the course of a year. And of course, it's a bad thing, and thus the serpent is eating the Earth. It's a bad thing. Okay.
Daniel, I have a quick question. With the intertwined serpents, that looks an awful lot like the DNA double helix. Is there any correlation there?
Yes and no. And it's wonderful that you asked that question. Very observant. I love that. Not with the serpent, but they knew about DNA. And I can prove it. It's in what I'm going to show you. Okay. I am about, I don't even want to say 99% sure. I'm just saying 99% instead of 100%, just to try to be fair. Okay. They knew about DNA. But that's very observant. But in context to the serpents, no, but you're still onto something. So this is, remember when in the Bible, those of you might know, Moses had to put a brass serpent on a pole, and all the children of Israel had to look at it. Well, why was it a serpent, and why was it brass? And why was it a bad thing? The serpent's a bad thing. There's two colors of negative aurora displayed in the aurora thing. Everything is positive from positive exposure. Positive radiation, ionic radiation coming in. It makes the greens, the reds, the purples. There's two colors that negative ionic structure make. And guess what those two colors are? Black and brass. Interesting. Moses put a brass serpent on a pole. And they, if it bit you, I think actually it was a good thing. I think if you got bitten by the serpent, could heal you. I think it was, but it was a bad thing. So it's funny that this serpent would be around an axis. It wasn't really a pole, was it? It was the Earth's axis that the serpent controls. And it was brass, which was negative aurora. I found that fascinating. Continue. And of course, this is where our mythologies lead us. We believe it's real. These are snake handlers in Kentucky. It's an old picture. You'll see little buddy here's already lost an arm following the literal interpretation. But it really wasn't talking about real serpents and real dragons, was it? Kind of shows the danger of believing things literally. But the Magi, they played us. I mean, we don't believe in Santa Claus anymore, but we're given that because it keeps us in line as a culture. It keeps our children in line. Now, you better be, Santa Claus knows if you're naughty or nice, so you better do it right. Now, by the way, you're going to go to hell forever and ever if you don't follow this God. You're going to be firewood for hell. So it's like the Easter Bunny, the Tooth Fairy. If you're good, you'll get $1 or a nickel under your pillow. Remember that tradition? But there's always a deterrent there. If you're bad, this is going to happen. You won't get your money. You won't get presents for Christmas, and you're going to burn in hell forever. So they had to keep us in line to get us to the finish line. They had to do it. And fear factor, deterrent, is how they did it. They had to do. You have to understand, these people that made these mythologies and purposely misled us, they didn't do it because they were bad people. They did it because they had to do it.
Why? What is the finish line? Why did they have to do anything? The Magi, what was their purpose?
Their purpose was to get humanity and the creature that they thought was dormant within us, the butterfly that was dormant within the caterpillar before its transformation. They had to get us to the finish line, or so they believed. Now, I'm not even saying I agree with this part of what they believe. I'm not even saying I agree with it. So please don't tell everybody, well, he thinks this, because I'm not even saying I agree with it. I don't know how I feel about it. But they were trying to get us to a finish line. Through years of doing this, it appears that they needed our mouthpiece. They needed our mouthpiece. That's why the scriptures, Jewish, Muslim, and other religions around the world had reading schedules for their scriptures. Only priests were allowed to read, and they were only allowed to read on certain schedules. This is Kukulkan, by the way, El Castel, their serpent mound. And what they needed us to do, they needed our mouthpiece, because to them, there was a power in the spoken word. But because all of their word was engineered mathematically and created a specific wave pattern, you could only speak certain words on certain days at certain times of days. And there's a very pseudo science behind that. Again, I'm not so sure I agree with it, but it's what they believed. And that's why the Hebrew and Greek languages were mathematically designed. And every letter of every word of every sentence of every chapter of every book in the Hebrew and Christian Bibles were written with a word calculator. Has anyone heard of the Antikythera mechanism? The Antikythera mechanism was a gear-driven analog calculator that was found off the coast of the island of Antikythera, off of Greece, and it was believed to have been made between 250 and 500 BC. And some divers found it. Universities have x-rayed it and put it back together, and it's a fascinating analog calculator that is able to track, they've even recreated it, by the way, is able to track celestial cycles forwards and backwards thousands of years in time. There's no way somebody should have been able to make the gear train for this thing between 250 and 500 BC. It's almost a scientific impossibility. I challenge you all to look up Antikythera mechanism. Well, it just so happens that other countries had it too. And through understanding and decoding the scriptures mathematically, I was able to build a model, on paper at least, of a 5-layered calculator that the Hebrews had and that they used for writing word. And I will show that to you. This is my own recreation. I named it the wisdom wheel. Can you see that?
A little bit.
Okay. It's in the book. Maybe Zane can kind of help a little bit there. It's a multi-layered calculator.
Can you guys see that?
It had 5 or 6 layers. This particular model is surrounded with the Hebrew alphabet, which had 22 mathematically derived letters. Every syllable and word.
Can you guys see that? I mean, I know you're sharing your screen, but can you guys see that? I've got it.
If you guys will pin him as the speaker in his little window, you'll get a blown up version of him. He'll be the main feature on the screen.
Yeah, let me try that. Just a second. All right, hang on just a second. Daniel, I'm gonna make you the host real quick, okay?
Oh, that's dangerous.
Yeah. How does that?
Can people see that? Yes, no, yes, no.
If not, I've got mine up. It's in his book, but can you guys see that?
That works, Sherry. That works really good.
Y'all see that?
Maybe not make me the host at this point, because that looks really good.
It's a lot of responsibility.
Hang on, let me unhost you just a second, and then you guys can hang on just a second.
Now, most of the information for that wisdom wheel came from the book of Enoch. Now, I don't want to say most of it. I'm going to say about half of it. Everything else came from Genesis all the way through to Revelation. There's little tidbits of information all the way through. Example, the timeline. 1 Peter chapter 3:8 says, know this, brethren. He's talking supposedly, and he just stops mid-sentence basically. And he says, but know this, that unto the Lord, a day is 1,000 years, and 1,000 years is a day. Well, they just gave you part of the code. So from now on, when you see the word day in the Bible, know that it's talking about 1,000-year period of time. When you see anything talking about thousands of years, it's talking about literal days. They reversed the meaning of the word train to mean something else. So when you go to Hosea chapter 6, verse 2, and it says, after 2 days, we shall be revived, and on the 3rd day, we shall be raised up in his sight. How much timeline is it talking about? It's talking not about 2 days and 3 days. It's talking about 2,000 and 3,000 years. They gave you the timeline. When you go to the book of Daniel, chapter 12, and it gives you the timeline of 1,290 days, it's talking about 1,290 years, 290,000 years. When it says, and those who come to the 1,335th day, it's talking about, I'm sorry, not 1 million. It says 1,335th day. It's actually talking about 1,335,000 years. They had grand timelines for all this stuff happening. They knew it and goes way back. And so at some point the question comes in, where did this intellect come from? If they really had this information, where did this mind come from in an age when they did not have cars, they did not have airplanes? And you get into all that. That's a whole nother ball of wax. So Zane wants me to say something here. What do you got, bud? Okay, well, I'm going to bring that up last for these people, because they're going to love that. They're going to love that. Okay, Sherry, bring me back to the center here. What were we talking about?
So we have a question. who exactly were the Magi? Were they people like us? Were they extraterrestrials? Were they angelics? Who were the Magi? Like, who were they?
Well, we don't exactly know. You know, are there humans in different parts of the world would take their children's head and they would put boards with rope around them to make them cone shaped, but they were obviously making cone shaped heads and they were mimicking something that they saw. So what did they see? Well, we don't know. Were they seeing people with elongated skulls? You see Akhenaten, the carving on one of the Egyptian stela carvings in one of the pyramids or temples. And he's got a cone head. Some of the Egyptians have cone heads. Some of the Babylonians have cone heads. Some of the ancient people around the world, but they were always leaders. They had cone heads. Were these the magistrates? Why are the Maya Indian called Maya? Why was the Hindu god called Maya? Why were there Magi in China? Why were there obey the magistrates in the Bible? Why was it Magoi that were the chief of the Greek circles at one time? Why was this name everywhere? Why would Titus 3:1 say obey the magistrates? It's kind of self-serving. If you're making these scriptures and you're saying obey the magistrate, it's like, hey, listen to me, do what I say. But you know,
Could they have been the Anunnaki or
they could, but here's the deal. Here's the sleight of word, you know, because that's what a magician does. Magic. They didn't use sleight of hand. They used sleight of word. They tricked us through the scriptures. They tricked us through the mythologies. Example, the Anunnaki, those 4 big circles you saw, you can hold the book up again for just a second if you want, are grand cycles. In the book of Enoch, it identifies those 4 circles. And by the way, those 4 circles are 4 grand cycles called the Great Pascal Cycle. The yellow circle represents a grand cycle of 532 years. It represents 19 28-year cycles. The lower circle is white. That represents a full moon. It is also a Great Pascal cycle. And it just so happens that it's 28 cycles of 19-year lunar cycles. After 532 years, they come out to the same. Keep holding it there, Sherry. Don't give up just yet. You also have a morning and evening cycle. The 2 circles on either side. These are also Great Pascal cycles for the equinoctial alignment, or equinoctial, I can never pronounce it, equinox alignments. How's that? And they're also 532-year cycles. These are actually listed in the book of Enoch. But guess what you're really looking at there? How that's symbolized in the Bible is called the 4 rivers of Eden. And the river parted and became 4 heads. And in the book of Proverbs, it says, and as a river empties into the sea, the top light blue section is called a sea. The bottom black section is also called a sea. And each one of these circles, quote unquote, empties into it, figuratively speaking, not really, because they're not really rivers, are they? But it says, and returns to the place from which it came. Name a river for me that returns to the place of its origin. Name one. I'll wait all day. I'll wait all year. You cannot name a river that returns to its point of origin. But in the Bible, when you're symbolizing things, they can it? So these 4 quote unquote cycles or rivers empty into these seas, the big blue sea at the top, the dark sea, which represents the night sky at the bottom. And after 532 years, they return to their point of origin.
Is consciousness a river that returns to its point of origin?
I look at it more like a caterpillar and a butterfly. Now,
Okay.
you take your own take on it, right?
Yeah.
I'm not going to interrupt what you think and what you feel, but here's what I see. I see that, you know, the caterpillar is quite an ugly creation. And I'm going to say that's who we are as a human creature. We are carnal and we are temporal as a result. And we're quite ugly. Look at our wars, murder, rape, plane crashes, train crashes, cars, hatred, all kinds of isms, you know, keep us apart. And I don't really know what you guys are thinking. You don't really know what I'm thinking. None of us really know what we are not one. We are not one. We can pretend to be one. We can love each other as much as we can love each other being in separate bodies, but we don't really understand each other's experience. Not really. But again, like the trees, metaphorically speaking, you take us through a transformation process. And the Bible talks about this. all the ancient scriptures talk about it, transformation. We become the butterfly, but the butterfly is true oneness, to where there is no more me, there is no more you, there is only the new me. But it's not me by myself or you by yourself. There's no more you and me. It's only oneness. There's only oneness. Oneness is the answer. And the consciousness of oneness is the answer. And that's what the promise is to bring an electromagnetic signal that's going to bring this quote unquote glory of the Lord. That'll be your sign. That'll be your sign right there, is the super aurora. But what it does to us internally is to alter our consciousness to this elevated consciousness, to where there is no more me and you. There's only one.
What will
Remember,
it do to the other animals and the plants? Will they also experience this?
well, I don't know. I think it will affect every man, woman, and child, because it talks about the new heaven and the new earth as well. So could there be an upgrade of lower life forms to higher life forms that don't quite get as far? But right now, as far as consciousness, in most ways, the human is still it. We still have the highest consciousness. I mean, higher than a dog. Dogs are sweeter than we are typically, but we are kind of up here on the top of the ladder as far as consciousness. So we have the most to gain from it, but all creatures will gain from it. And so what are we looking at like on time right now, Sherry? Because I've got so much more I want to show you.
It's okay. It's 5:26 right now. So we've got about 30 more minutes.
Okay.
I mean, we could, do you want to just get through your talk and then we can ask questions, open it up and ask questions?
Yep.
Are you guys okay with that?
I want to blow people away with just one or two other little things here, and then I'll shut up. Or shut up. I want to get to something. I want to show you some neat stuff. So you remember those two grids that were in the men and women's court of the
Yes.
temple? Okay. If you take the successive cycles, you've got 24-hour cycles, you've got monthly cycles, you've got 1,000-year cycles, you've got 1,260-year cycles, you've got much longer cycles, and you put that data down and you record. Can you see these series of circles? Can you see these?
Yes,
Women's
but
court?
I don't know what I'm necessarily looking at here.
Okay. These are a whole bunch of circles put together, connected. And if you look in the center, the way they're connected, it produces the Star of David. Remember the Star of David? It's on the Israeli flag.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. This is where they
But I
got
mean,
it
do
from.
each of these circles represent something, or
They're pretend that there's the sun and the moon and the other known planets at the time are on each one of these circles. They would place the data on each circle and then place each circle on a piece of parchment, which is stretched skin from animals. And it's like makes a really good paper to draw on. But I want to go back, I'll make it quick, to Noah's Ark, just to show you how they were talking about the celestial signs. Noah's Ark was 300 cubits long, according to the Bible, 30 cubits tall, and 50 cubits wide. Now, I'm going to draw you an abbreviated version of this here. Oh gosh, hope I didn't mess that up. Oh no, I may have. I did, I just messed up my whole thing. But here you go. I'm going to draw a line. I'm just going to trace existing line data. Can you see that horizontal line going through there, the black one
Yeah.
underneath the red?
Yep, I can see the red.
Okay. Now I'm going to draw this line. I'm just going to trace existing line data. I'm not making up anything on my own. These things were huge-ish, and you could literally make an entire Noah's Ark of, whoops, did that wrong. It's supposed to be this one here, of 300 cubics by 30 cubics. And of course, this is only 3 cubics tall. So I don't have enough room on my computer monitor to show you the whole thing. This is Noah's Ark. Okay. And it's 3D. You can see that it's 3D. I can keep tracing lines and I can show you the cubits. I can show you the individual cubics of Noah's Ark. The animals that went on by 2s and 7s. I can show you that, and I'm going to show you that.
What's the significance of this?
Well, remember me telling you how the Earth right now at present tilt takes 25,920 years
Mm-hmm.
to make a circle,
Yep.
a cycle? I want to show you something. This
I have a
is,
question when you have a moment,
go
Daniel.
ahead, please ask.
My name's Ekna, by the way. I see your design, and I have your book, and I saw this design, and I've been staring at it. But what do the highlighted cubes represent? Or are you getting to that now?
Well, we're getting to that. The cubes,
Okay,
the total
thank you.
cubic count for Noah's Ark with this 3D image is 25,500 cubics. That's dangerously close to 25,920 cubics, or 25,920 years, which is the present rate of axle wobble. And the axle wobble is based on the axle tilt. If we close that wobble up to 25,500, if we believe that Noah's Ark is telling us years instead of cubits, then it changes our axle tilt, and our axle tilt is 23.06 degrees now. Well, why would the Bible be telling us about a 23? Now, I know there's some assumption here. There's assumptions that we're talking about years and not cubics. But I want to point out that if you take the time in the Bible from the time Noah's Ark took off to the time it landed on Mount Ararat was 354 days. That's exactly one lunar year. That's how long it takes the Earth to go around, or the moon to go around the Earth 12 times in a year. That's 354 days. And then from then until the animals were let out was another 11 days. That's exactly 365 days. That's exactly one solar year. So see, they're telling us about lunar and solar cycles that affect Earth's axis. So of course it's going to be 300 cubics long by 30 cubics tall by 50 cubics wide for a total of 25,500 cubics, because they're not talking about cubics, are they? They're talking about years. And 25,500 is almost 25,920, except for it gives an improved axle tilt of 23.06 degrees. Why is 23.06 degrees important? Well, let me show you why it's important. And please tell me I can find this.
I think for me, I keep coming back to if our tilt or something is this, solar flash or whatever's going on, is it going to bring us back in alignment? And then I do want you to talk about the blink of an eye, because if this is going to happen over hundreds of years, that's not a blink of an eye.
Well, I'm going to give you
Keep going. I know I'm jumping ahead.
Well, no, you didn't. You actually nailed it. It's good timing. Bear with me. Bear with me, because I'm trying to stay with the Noah's Ark thing for just a second. You're talking about see how with Noah's Ark we have created a grid system image. I'm going to call this the grid system because it's full of grids. So it's a grid system. It's a tracking mechanism. Okay. We created images or sacred art from it.
What's the significance of the Star of David? I mean, it's pulled from the woman's court. Did I get that right? It was pulled from the women's court?
It was. Okay. I'm just going to go back to that.
Does that hold? I'm not, I mean, for all of you guys here, I'm trying to catch up on all this stuff as quickly as I can, but I'm definitely not an expert in sacred geometry or anything like that. But
well,
is there some sort of symbolism or
sacred art? Yes. Sacred art is a byproduct of sacred geometry and sacred math. And the math told the story of what they knew. But by the way, now you can make every image of every story in the Bible. But let's start with the women's grid in the women's court. There's one. Now let's put a successive cycle or a new cycle of that grid attached to the periphery. Boom, there's one. Now another. Boom, and another, and another, and another, and another. Now look at the center. Can you see what's at the center with that line data? See the Star of David?
I see the Star of David. Can you guys see the Star of David?
Well, here you go. I'll make it easier for you. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Oops. I blew that up.
We can't see you drawing. Are you on the?
Yeah, we can't see it.
Did I not share it?
We can see the big grid with the stars and the concentric circles, but if you're doing something, we don't see any movement.
Okay, let me just keep going. Hold on.
And I'm sorry to take you off track, because I know you're
Nope,
talking
that's okay.
about the, Noah's Ark.
Screen share. Share. Is that better?
Okay, I see that.
Yeah, we
Is
can
that
see
better
that.
for you guys? Okay.
Uh-huh.
Okay, let's go backwards. Start over. there's the women's grid right there. Now we're going to add a successive cycle. We're going to attach a new grid to the periphery. Pretend we have new celestial alignments that we need to record. Okay, we're going to add that here around the periphery of the main one. And then again, and again, and again, and again. And all these would be placed mathematically. Now can you start to see
Wait,
the
and
Star of
time
David?
out, slow down. What do each of these represent? What each of,
New cycles of the celestial sphere, new cycles, new placements of where the sun is, the moon is, because all of these things affect axial alignment. The months of the year affect the position of the moon. 12 cycles affect the position of Earth's axes. So if you're going to try to change axial alignment, you need to know where these cycles are. You need to track this data. And they
and each
did.
of these cycles is 20, you said 20 something thousand years, 25,000
Well,
years?
there's
Or-
different amounts. These are a women's grid. So 12, it represents lunar. So these are either monthly or some longer monthly type calendar. It could be a 19-year cycle. Just depends on what they were trying to track at a given time. But either way, the takeaway here is that these are new cycles. And guess what? It makes pretty cool art. And you can see in the center of this design, the Star of David. Can you see that right here?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay, this is where they got their line data for the Star of David. They didn't just make it up. They got it
They
from
being the Magi. They being the Magi.
Yep, the Magi didn't just make it up. When you see the 7 and 9 candlestick menorah, I'm going to show you where they got that line data. They got it from these grids. It's really cool. Let's keep going. So here's where I put it in here. And now you can see on the modern day flag of Israel, a design that came from the grid system that is as ancient can be. Somebody knows something, don't they?
What do you
Probably.
think the significance of that is? Do you think
Just-
that's like the
It's
solar
kind of a way
flash?
of being, it's kind of a way of being in your face. Like we know something you don't know about the ancients. It kind of is. That's what I think. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's my takeaway on it. Okay, let's go to something else. What were we talking about here? Let's go to,
Is there a significance that Israel has that and no other countries? Or
actually,
like, as
India
far as,
does have it. Actually, India had it before Israel because it's
Okay.
not, they also had grid systems for the development of their scriptures. And so this design would have come up in theirs too, because they also tracked with the celestial sphere. So it's not just for Israel.
okay.
Everybody had it.
So
Everybody
there's
had it.
nothing significant about that area, that land?
no.
Or, okay.
Nothing. And trust me, having graduated a Christian high school and been to church most of my life, it would have been nice at one time if I could have believed that, but it's simply not the truth. India had this star way before, but it doesn't matter who had it first. It was the same group of magistrates created both schools in both countries. In Israel, they were called the magistrates, or like Daniel in the book of Daniel, he was called a magician, chief of the magicians. In India, it was they were called Maya or magic, and symbolized as Lakshmi or Lakshima. I can't pronounce her name, but she was the goddess of magic. But either way, same people. Now let's see here. Let me see what else is really cool to show you.
Daniel, I think you were in search of something for that 23
Stop sharing.
percent, the buffer on the tilt. You were talking about the tilt of
Say,
the
say that one more time, please.
so you were talking about that 23% or 23,
Oh, 23.06. Thank you.
right?
Thank
yeah,
you.
yeah,
Zane, if I want to look something up on here, how do I do it? Go to Google? Because I'm not finding, I want to share screen, but I'm not ready to share because I can't find it. Go to Google first. Okay, so I'm going to look up.
And then
let's
after
see.
that, Michaela has a question for you in the
Go
chat.
ahead. Go ahead. I'll
The
try to
question was,
answer.
I thought there were occasionally 13 moons per year, blue moon.
Okay, visit. Now, how do I share that, Zane?
Go back to Zoom real quick.
Zoom, here, share screen. That one right there. Share.
So answer the question.
Okay, so now ask the question again. Apparently, I'm not as good at multitasking as
I
I thought.
can't, I'll finish this because then I can't see the
Okay.
chat. So there
Okay.
are some questions in the chats, but you'll be able to see the chat after you get
So
done
the
explaining that.
23.06. Most pyramids made by the ancients are oriented north, south, east, west, or towards the sunset of the summer solstice or the sunrise of the summer solstice or winter solstice. They have some kind of celestial alignment. This pyramid doesn't. This has twin serpents coming down the steps. But guess what the alignment of this pyramid is? 23.06. And you know what's more interesting than having the same axle alignment indicator as Noah's Ark gives us? But it also has 4 sets of steps of 91 steps each, which comes to 364, plus the top step comes to 365, just like Noah's Ark. From the beginning to the end is 365 days exactly. Because why? This isn't about 2 real serpents coming down the side any more than Noah's Ark was about real people and real animals. It was about celestial and lunar cycles. That's what they were telling us. How long was it going to be before this happened? And they tracked the data and they cataloged it as mythological stories that we could understand at the time. It's the best they could do, people. It's all they could do. But it sure is cool because this pyramid's really cool, and so is the story of Noah's Ark. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing that now. Let's go back.
And then just look at the, there were some things that are in the chat, some questions in the chat for
Okay.
you.
Okay.
It starts with Michaela said, I thought there were occasionally 13 moons per year, blue moon. And then Marza said the Egyptians had a change in their calendar. 1 year equaled 360 days. Then it got changed to 365. Wasn't the tilt change caused by a younger Dryas period due to comets, the destruction of Nibiru? And then as well, the Asir, I'm going to mispronounce
Osiris
that.
Temple.
Yeah.
That's the flower of life.
Has
Yes.
which is also the law of one or law of Ra. And then Desiree said 13 months was the actual calendar year originally. So how
Okay.
would that fit into a 12-month thing that you were
Okay.
explaining with the
So
women?
12 is synodic. There's synodic months, and somebody help me here. What's the other month? I'm having my brain's locking up. I've been talking so much. There's 2 types of months, but the synodic month is always 12. But there is another measurement where you can get 13. It's kind of like 12 and a half, but you can exaggerate and call it 13. But for what the ancients used most of the time was 12 synodic months. At least let's put it this way. It's what they used in Islam and the Quran. It's what they used in the Old Testament, in the New Testament, and it's what, Lord Vishnu in the Hindu, he had 12 heads. He didn't have 13. He didn't have 11. He had 12. So here we are. Most of the countries, the ancient countries, used 12. But technically, and again, I'm having a brain fart. I cannot remember the other 13. What? It's not called synodic. Sidereal months. Yes, or 13. So that's why sometimes you will see 13 in the ancient stuff. Okay, let's go on to the next one. The Osiris Temple had the flower of life. Okay, to have the flower of life, you had to have that same image we showed you with the Star of David, because you will see the flower of life created by that celestial alignment of grids. So for Egypt to have the flower of life, they also had to have a grid system. If you look on the ceiling of some of the burial chambers, you will see the men's grid printed over and over and over, where they kept up with the cycles as well. And again, that's how you tracked the sun, the moon, and the known planets, is with these different halves of the celestial sphere, the men and women's grid, so to speak. So yes, it was in Egypt as well as Babylon and the Hindu religion as well. Next question. The Egyptians changed theirs. Okay, 360 days is an average between 354 and 365. And so on a compass today, on a modern compass, we have 360 degrees. And it's basically the average between the lunar and solar month. Yeah, it's not exactly the average, but it works. It works. And even today for artillery, the U.S. military and a lot of militaries around the world still use the compass. And it's further divided into 6,400 mils and so on and so on. But yeah, on our maps, we still use minutes, seconds, and degrees. And again, it comes from different minutes and seconds, or a division of the degrees, of which there are 360. It comes from the ancient system, which I say is the sacred system. They didn't use tenths, they used 12s. because 12 is sacred, and it comes from how many times the moon went around the earth. So there's that. Next one. Again, the question, I thought there were occasionally 13 moons. Well, actually I already went down. So I'm kind of actually reading in reverse here. So that's it. There was sidereal months, and then there was synodic months, but usually they dealt with synodic months. Uh-oh, Sherry's smiling. That's dangerous.
Okay, no, okay, so we have several questions. Okay, so the first is significance, why the women's court, not the men's court? Second, going back, what is going on with the Star of David? Like, is that signifying something that potentially like solar flash, ascension, rapture, and then circle back, blink of an eye, to get you to answer how long is the blink of an eye if you're using the math, and when is this supposed to occur according to your research?
Okay, let's do.
Lots of questions. There you
Oh
go.
yeah, let's do this. Hold on, I'm going to try to find something for you here. Since you're really putting me to the iron. You want to know what the Star of David might represent? How do I get that up there? Zane? How
The
can I?
it seems like it's the
How do I
significance.
get
So
that up
what is
there?
the significance of that? And does it have any role to play in the like solar flash, ascension, rapture, what have you,
Yep. Okay, can you see that?
Yes.
Okay, so you see the Star of David on the left over here with the 6 grid series that I placed around the perimeter of the first women's grid series. And again, we're talking sacred art. So you're at liberty to draw what is there. But there's nothing you can draw that doesn't exist there. So you see cubics in the middle. You see the Star of David. You're already starting to see all kinds of cool little goodies. We've already got Noah's Ark out of a whole bunch of these. But if by just erasing certain line data, you're starting to see the structure of an atom, aren't you? With that Star of David right here. Looks eerily like an atom to me. Now, that's conjecture. I don't know that. But I'm thinking they did understand atomic structure. I'm thinking they did understand DNA, which is on the temple. I don't think we're going to get to all that today. I think this is for another session or for individual sessions, which I'm always glad to do individual sessions with people for
Well, if
individual
we don't get to it all today, Daniel, we can, and I'm sure we'll talk about it and everything, but we could pull you back in
Okay. So next
if you're
question.
up for it.
Oh, absolutely. Significance of the Star of David was one question. Then you had like 5 others.
Yeah, it was the significance of Star of David and why the women's court and not the men's court. Is there a
That's it.
significance to that? And then does the Star of David signify some sort of ascension? You're saying it represents an atom the more that you look at it.
Kind of, sort of.
And then the other one was the blink of an eye. When is this supposed to occur? Is this how long?
Oh,
Based
the
on your
twinkling of an
research
eye
and
at the
math.
last Trump. Let's just do that for right now because
Okay.
I'm not smart enough to keep up
I
with all
know.
this. Let's do the twinkling of an eye at the last Trump. Let's see if I had that up here. It better be still up here.
Some people say that Trump refers to Donald Trump. I don't know. I don't know. I'm just throwing that out there.
Here's the menorah. Let's see. You're not seeing that, are you? Let's throw that out there real quick. Hold on. Stop share. Now let's see. I did? Now share. Okay. Here's another grid series. Here's another series of grids that were not in the men and women's court. These represented, the men and women's court represented Earth's daily spin and the cycles thereof. These heavier grids with more lines, more diagonal lines, had 24 diagonal lines instead of 12. They had all these radial lines on 12-degree centers. They represented Earth's wobble, and they were seen as a bad thing because they looked like spider's web and different things. But when you put a whole bunch of them together and you erase certain line data, you get the menorah. This is a real menorah, and you can see the radial lines. And of course, the sun follows the equator, rather, of these grids. So as the sun would symbolically come around, it would light each one of these thusly. Boom, Oops, that's the wrong color. Boom. So it's lighting the candles of the menorah as it comes around. Got to use your imagination, aka magi, because magi means imagination. Also, it's a root word. So
Is there a significance to the menorah?
it's just another cool little design that you can get out of it. This there is. See these red rings here?
Mm-hmm.
I have isolated. I know it's a mess. It's like all this line data. It's almost too much to even keep up with. But if you isolate just one grid, you will notice something really cool. Now I'm going to draw the inner circle of that one grid. And I'm going to show you something really cool. Okay, I'm going to change color to black. And I'm going to outline how many circles, hubs. By the way, this is a hub. See down here on this grid, this is a hub. It's the center hub. I'm going to isolate how many hubs are within those red circles. And some kind of cool little anomaly. You ever notice the Bible and other ancient scriptures mention 7 a lot? Well, that's because their grid systems isolated 7 by the very nature and size of the grids. And if you'll count, there'll be 7 hubs in here. I haven't done real good. I'm in a hurry. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 isolated in any one grid. So the harlot that had 7 heads and or sat on a beast, and the beast had was like a leopard and had the mouth of a lion and the feet of the bear. Well, if you place all the constellations in here, Ursa Major, which is a bear, the Lynx, which is a leopard, and Leo, which is a lion, and you just pick and choose which ones, you will see that they align in just a certain way to where, oh, here's a cool looking creature. It's got the feet of a bear, the mouth of a lion, and the body of a leopard. Ta-da, there's your beast. There's the beast everybody's been looking for forever, and it's in the book. It's in the book. That is the beast of Revelation. There was another beast. It had 7 and 10 heads and 10 horns. Again, 7. That's because Draco, this dragon, was listed 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times. And up here, when you isolate the line data, he will have 10 horns and he will have crowns upon his heads. There's no getting away from it. It was all sacred art. It was all celestial science. And more important than the imagery they gave us is what were they really trying to tell us? And what they were really trying to tell us was about the coming of this super aurora and how it was going to change all of us. That's what they were telling us. So that's cool. So I'm going to stop sharing the screen. Okay, next question.
That would go the aurora in the blink of the eye.
Oh, blink of an eye. Where is that? Let's talk about this. Not to make you mad, Sherry, I'm going to have to divert here for just a second. Let's talk about the men and women of the Bible. Every 9 months and 21 days, Venus, the planet Venus, will align directly in front. Oops.
Can you all see that?
You should be able to. I'm sharing it. No? Stop share. Let's try that again. Share your screen. Share. Can you see that?
I can see it.
The figurine men? Okay, let's go over here to the men's grid, and you'll see that I've got the sun drawn right here. Every 9 months and 21 days, Venus, which looks like a little red dot against the sun, will align directly in front of or behind it. Okay, so we'll pretend that's the sun and Venus alignment. 9 months and 21 days later, it will align over here. Then it will align down here, and again up here, and again here, and finally finishing the cycle. Well, that 5-sided star was called the bright and morning star. It was called that in Job, and the morning stars shall sing together. In Genesis 37, or the book of Numbers, I said it says, behold, a star shall come out of Jacob. In Genesis 37, going back, Jacob says to his father, it says, behold, shall me and your, Jacob said, I saw a dream, and I saw 11 stars, and the sun and the moon made obstinance to me. And Jacob's father said, shall me and your mother and your 11 brothers make obstinance to you? Well, what stars was he talking about? He was talking about these stars because they weren't real people to begin with. It looks like a person with 2 outstretched hands, 2 outstretched feet, and a head. Hence, Agrippa and later people, including Da Vinci, made this dude here, which was really just symbolic of this alignment of Venus and the sun. Now, the Catholic Church made this evil in the 1880s and said, oh, it's bad. I think somebody was getting too close to the science. And the Catholic Church tried to divert them from it. But that's all it is. It just represents in everybody. Behold, Jesus said in 22:16 of Revelation, he said, behold, I'm the root and offspring of David. I am the bright and morning stars. The characters of the Bible were not people. None of them. They were stars in this grid system. So when you understand that, you can start to place their characters in the grid system, in the grids that they go in. Each one will have their own grid. So the men, the women, Adam, Eve, Sarah, Jesus, the 12 apostles were all stars in this massive grid system. Women were formed with lunar alignments. Men were formed with solar alignments. That's why the men's grid is divided into 24 parts, because it's a sundial, and the women's is divided into 12 because it was a lunar alignment. So they say men are from Mars, women are from Venus. Is that how it goes, or is it the opposite? But actually, according to the ancients,
I think that's it.
according to the ancients, the women of the Bible were not real people at all. They were made from lunar alignments, these figurines. And of course, that's also in the book. But now we're going to go into something else you ask. Oh, not quite. Here's something. See how I made these? Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, I noticed that that star is the progression of Venus as well, which represents the women.
Okay.
Like the Venus path transit makes that pentagram in the sky.
Yes, and it also makes the female alignments too. And of course, again, we're not really talking about men and women. Women. Okay, so here's one that's neat. See these clouds, how I erased and selected line data and I made cool looking clouds? Can you see that?
Yes.
Okay, check this out. Well, there's a figurine in the clouds. Why is that significant? Because the Bible verse, Matthew 24:30 says, and then shall appear the sign of the Son of Man in heaven, and then shall come all the tribes of the earth mourn, and they shall see the Son of Man coming in the clouds of heaven with great power and glory. And Matthew 24:33 goes on to say, so likewise, when you see these things, know that it is near. So you have, for the first time in over 2,000 years, seen what the Magi saw. You have seen Jesus coming in the clouds of heaven. So know that the end is near. It's here. The end is beginning. It's going to take a long time, guys. It's not going to happen overnight. So we don't have to get like scared or anything. It's kind of cool. And there's just another one I made with women's grid, which is kind of cool. But anyway, so that's what it's talking about. Do we got more questions, or do we want to go on to the ending here, Sherry? What do you think we should do?
Is there any question, guys? We can keep going.
There's a lot of data here. There's a lot of data. It's almost too much for one setting. Everybody's scratching their head. I don't blame them. I did this for the years, but because it's a lot of data. But what do you
We have about how much longer do you have, Daniel?
Oh, I could talk all day and all night, but I know you don't want to do that. We can go 4 minutes, couple minutes, whatever you want to do. I do have a video I want to show everybody before we cut ways, because it will be a shortcut to the information. Instead of talking science, instead of talking mythology, instead of talking sacred art and all the other connective facets of this, it separates the BS from the buckwheat, and it gets right down to the meat of things. It's a 2-minute video. It's awesome. We can show that now, or we can go. It's just keep talking, whatever you want to do.
What do you guys feel like doing? Someone said they want to show the video, please.
Okay.
They want to see the video.
Let's do this. Okay, now Zane, you're going to have to help me with this. Share screen. Now, how do we get Google? Share. Okay. Full screen. Now, before I share this video, now we got to go up here to more. Are they still going to be able to hear me? Okay. Share sound.
Yeah, we can still hear you.
Okay. So before I share this video, this is a solar storm that happened, I think, in either 2015 or 2017. Again, it was a solar storm. It was not a constant flow of radiation via this reconnection point that NASA has discovered, but the effect is going to be the same. Now, I want you to think back to the Carrington event, that it was a global event. I want you to look around a minute 8, and at about a minute 8 into this video, you will see a thing called aurora lightning. And remember the verses in the Bible that says, and there were thunderclaps around the throne and lightnings around the throne. This is what it's going to look like worldwide. Remember, there shall be no need for the light of the sun and the moon, for the glory of the Lord shall illuminate the temple of in. It will change every man, woman, and child, every animal, every tree, every beet, every buck, everything will change. You ready? Enjoy. This is the coming of the glory of the Lord. This is it. This is what the ancients knew. And it's absolutely gorgeous. Okay, get ready. Here it comes. First. And that is what we're in store for. Maybe not in our generation, but progressively more and more and more. It will happen until that is a global event. And that's what the ancients knew. And that's why they, not the only reason they built the pyramids, but it's one of the only reasons they built them. It's one of the reasons they encoded their scriptures with the data to track this information, and also that it would be there for us when the time came. One last thing. So you remember the aurora lightning that we saw?
Yep.
Incredible.
This is Montezuma's headdress. Oh, hold on. I didn't share it, did I? I'm so bad about that. Okay, now can you see Montezuma's headdress? Yes, no? Are you
Yes,
there?
Yeah, that's gorgeous.
Okay, that is Montezuma's headdress. Who worshipped Quetzalcoatl, which was their serpent, and serpent head looked like a Quetzal bird, and it had beautiful greens and reds, just like the aurora, just absolutely beautiful. But I've been saying that they saw the super aurora once before, even though history doesn't seem to record it, but it was there and they saw it. Now, I took a screenshot from that aurora lightning that you saw in the video, and I'm going to post it. See what you think, if you know where they got the design for Montezuma's headdress. Can you see it? Can you see the radial lines? This, I say, came from this.
Wow.
Everything they patterned in ancient times came from what they saw in the heavens. And Montezuma's headdress even looks like the greens of the aurora with the reds in that lightning aurora with the radial lines. I'm hoping you can see that well enough. You can see the radial lines in the picture I'm seeing here on screen. It looks just like his headdress. Boom. That's it. This is what they knew. So that's it, I guess, for us today.
Thank you, Daniel. That was amazing.
Thank you. I hope you enjoyed it. I am more than willing to tell people individual questions. I want to tell you about my Facebook information, my social media data here. You can find us on the website, which is www.thebookofdanielnovel.com. You can get our book through Amazon, The Book of Daniel Novel. On YouTube, you can look up the Book of Daniel Novel trailer. That's pretty cool if you haven't seen that yet. Our Facebook is The Ancient Messenger on Facebook. And we also have not The Ancient Messenger, just Ancient Messenger on TikTok. We're going to start posting videos on there as well. So please check us out. Guys, I have appreciated you all so much. I know it's a lot of information. I know it's a tremendous amount. Shane wants me to show you something else. Oh, yeah. Oh, on the Facebook. Facebook.com/The Ancient Messenger, because I always get that wrong. Thank you, Zane. You're the best. But guys, I've appreciated you. I know it's a tremendous amount of data, a tremendous amount. But you want to know what the ancients knew? This is what they knew. This is what they knew. This is what they were telling us. But thank you again, Sherry, Mohini, everybody. Thank you guys so much. I've really appreciated your time.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions for him? Amanda.
I would like to also, your illustrations that you had, that short, not just illustrations, the short movie that you made.
Of the Women and Men's Grid?
Thank you. That thing.
Yes.
Is there a way that you can share that as well?
Absolutely.
Wonderful.
Would it be best if I just sent all this to Sherry and then she could send it out?
Yeah, if you send it
That
to
would
me,
be
then I can get it out to everybody here.
Okay, right on.
Thank you.
Oh,
Thank you.
cool.
And that was amazing.
Okay, thank you all.
Any other questions for him?
I have a, go ahead. Brenda wants to say something. No, Brenda? No, I have a question. So basically, I consider light to be information, and that there's an information upgrade coming, and the ancients knew it, and it was known worldwide. And
This is it.
That's really what you're saying. And
This is it.
is also has this ever happened before in humanity? Do you think that we could find evidence of this evolution, say for example in ice samples?
I do. I think we know it happened, that some of the bricks in Babylonia around between the 1st and 3rd century BC show a magnetic surge, like this geomagnetic energy is locked into the fine particles of the bricks, and the scientists were able to find that. So it happened then, but you don't hear a lot of reports about a super aurora at that time. But then again, the history is very incomplete. There's a lot of big gaps in history, and a lot has been destroyed. Even through archaeology, which was meant to preserve a lot of this, ended up destroying a lot of the information. So that's kind of sad. But
Or
to answer you
suppressed
directly, I
also.
think it will show up. Go ahead.
I was going to say, or suppressed, not only destroyed, but suppressed as well.
I agree. I do. I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I've never been a conspiracy theorist. I try to look at things rationally and logically, but I still believe a little bit of the conspiracy. I do. I agree with you. There's some of this stuff has been suppressed. I want to tell you something. I met with some high-ranking officers from the military. I was lucky enough to know some people from Bowman Field down here. It's an airfield in Louisville. And there were some aviators there that were high-ranking officers, and they were kind enough to give me an audience for a lot of the similar material that you've seen today. There was 10 or 11 guys there, and a lot of ego, as you might imagine, with high brass. A lot of tremendous amount of ego. Some people received the information quite well and understood it, could articulate it themselves. Other people just got angry. There was anger with this information. And of course, a little bit of alcohol involved too. People were drinking, and of course that never does anything good. So a couple of them got mad and really threw a fit. And so when you would point out certain bits of information, the first thing they would try to do is deny it and suppress it. So a lot of times the powers that be, for whatever, whether it's ego or vested interest or vested agendas, they will try to hide information. Now, will they all do it? No, there's some good people out there, no doubt. Good people at the top, but there's also a lot of rotten apples, as we all know. So I'm agreeing with you 100% about what you're saying. Suppressed. Some of it is. Absolutely. They wouldn't tell you if they did know it.
Brenda has a question.
I was just going to make a comment. Thank you so much for sharing this information. I'm just wondering if I feel like it's important that for collaboration, and I'm wondering, we have people like like Marza, Allen, and Matthias De Stefano, and Billy Carson, and Robert Edward Grant, and I'm wondering, are you collaborating with any of the other people who are also trying to get this information out about the change in the Earth's magnetic poles, and things like that, and how consciousness is being raised, because there are a lot of platforms out there to get this. I know your book is amazing, but there's platforms like
we need to hook up with Randall Carlson. We need to hook up with Graham Hancock on the Joe Rogan show. We need to get on Joe Rogan because he has got a mouthpiece. Let's face it, even if you don't like Joe, God, he affects everybody. Listens to Joe, not everybody, but you know what I'm saying. Like millions of people listen to Joe Rogan, and so that's a platform to really get the information out there. He has people like Graham Hancock and Randall Carlson that are good, similar along the same lines, and so it would be good banter, getting back and forth, get this information in front of a lot of people. Before I die, before I leave this earth, I want everybody to know this information. They can erase my name from the books and say, we don't know who gave it to us, but you all need to know this information, because I'm telling you, the new mind, the new creation is what's coming. And we know from Chernobyl that it can happen with the DNA. We know things can be altered for the good. My near-death experience says it. I can't prove it. It's unfalsifiable evidence, and I hate unfalsifiable evidence, things that you can't prove. You can say, I believe in swampland in Nevada. Well, good for you. Prove it. I want to be able to prove stuff. And that's why I like the science, because we need an umbrella we can get under so that we're not going 20 different ways, 5,000 different ways in our beliefs. And people need to know when it happens. Get ready for it, because this is what it's going to be. But there will also be turmoil. There will be this turmoil because you've got an old consciousness that's hanging on to the way things are, to our religions, to our life as a flesh and blood creature. But this new thing is coming that's going to replace it. And it's going to be a conflict for a long time. It's going to be very difficult. Look at the world. The world's losing its mind. Tell me it's not. Tell me the world's not losing its mind. Just look around us. It's, I don't think that's an argument. Maybe it would be for some of us, but not for me. It's just like I'm seeing things go on now that I've never seen. They make no sense according to the old way. And it's because there's confusion within the consciousness. And it's going to get worse, unfortunately, before it gets better. You've heard that. Things get worse before they get better. So, but go ahead.
We can also follow the metaphor of the caterpillar metamorphosizing into the butterfly, and knowing that there's only faith. There's no turmoil, that caterpillar has no idea, that what's going to happen. There's
Right.
just there's pure faith and trust, and
Yes,
just
but then
a
again,
knowing.
And I agree with you, but also think of what would it be like to be in that cocoon. It's a dark place. You're neither a caterpillar nor a butterfly. You're neither one. And so there's a time there where you don't know what you are. And it's dark. You can't see anything. It's a consciousness which makes no sense at some point.
But you know that the light will always follow the dark, and that
absolutely.
And being part of the Sisters of the Light, that's part of kind of who we are, and just a knowing that the darkness will come, but we have everything we need inside of us to face this I call it an upgrade.
And I love your analogies. I love that. It's perfect.
But thank you anyway, and I can't wait to finish reading your book.
Thank you very much. Zane wrote me a note here. We have, and he's right. So going back to the Joe Rogan thing and the platform question that you had, are we trying to get this out there? We are trying, but we have got to get this out. So anything anybody's willing to do to put their foot forward to help, we'll follow suit and jump right in there and make it happen. So, yeah.
Awesome. Well, and we'll close it out here. But one thing that Daniel, you had talked to me on the phone and everything, and you said basically this information, it falls in line with our mission statement. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yes, I can. As a matter of fact, I've got that right here on my phone. I saw something in your mission statement, 3 things that I really liked. And one, it says, and I'm going to catch this mid sentence here. It says, we allow individuals from all walks of life to connect with what they refer to as a higher power. And of course, as you've seen during this presentation, is we're taking the common denominator of all walks of life and all different beliefs and different higher powers, and we're bringing that together. And how are we doing it? Well, we're doing it mathematically. We're getting rid of the outward shell, the outward stories, and we're getting back to the common denominator of all these religions. So I take what you wrote and I see it in that light, that this is a way to connect. The next part was, you say we seek to embrace the wisdom of the ancestors of all cultures. Well, boom, here we are doing that same thing. And then it says, the last part was that you're here to assist others in remembering who they truly are. And I think that's a great note to go out on too, is that right there, is to connect with who we really are. And who we really are is this new creation. It is the remnant, as the Bible says. It's already in us, but it's dormant. It's asleep like that caterpillar. It doesn't know who it is. Right now, we still think, and pardon me for going out here in left field a little bit, we still think we're human. That's our real identity. Well, when I died or whatever happened, when I fell off that counter, I found out that there was a whole nother part of me that was way better. And that's who we truly are. So going back to your point, assisting others in remembering who we truly are. And that's the point. So those 3 points on the Sisters of Light mission statement, I absolutely love. I love it. Thank you for that.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other questions, guys? Okay. And we may have you back. We may have you back.
Well, please do.
Yeah. Mohini, can you close us out with a prayer, please? I'm going to stop the recording. Okay.
We give our gratitude to the source of all life, the uncaused cause of all things, the unmovable mover of all life, throughout the unknown universe and the known universe. We give our gratitude to the omnipresence of the Creator within us and the omnipresence of the Creator that surrounds us. We are grateful for all the legions of light workers and servants of the highest good that serve the end and the beginning and the end and the beginning of life. For there is no end of life. And we say thank you for this knowledge and having faith in the transitions from one form into another. We are grateful for this wisdom, and we are mostly grateful that we walk this journey together and not alone. We ask for the divine light of protection and guidance as we move forward in our days and our lives, that the path of service and the path of thriving life unfold before us. We say thank you in the names of the Creator throughout the cosmos. We give our gratitude and humble service. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, guys. Just a heads up, on January 20th, MUFON Brazos Valley, our chapter down here in Texas, is going to be also co-hosting. So it's Sisters of the Light and MUFON, our little chapter here in Brazos Valley, are co-hosting, so to speak. So Daniel will be talking again, but instead of focusing on consciousness, he's really going to focus on the science of what is coming in and what it's going to do DNA wise, all of that stuff. So I'm having a brain lapse and I don't remember what time, but I think it's 6 p.m. your time on January 20th.
I can't even remember myself. I'm tired.
We'll put it out. We'll put it out in an email and everything. But if you guys are interested, just like we invited anybody that wanted to join, anybody that's wanting to or willing to join that meeting, it's also going to be on Zoom. So everybody's welcome to jump on.
Thank you, guys. Thank you all very much. I appreciate you.
Thank you. Thank you. You guys have a great evening.
Okay. Bye, everybody.
Thank you, Daniel.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye. Okay. What do I do, buddy? Sure. Stop recording.
Thank you all for coming.